Okay, so this is going to be a very short video demonstrating some of the functionality we have at our disposal within Access to run queries. All right, so we talked about this idea of creating all the structure of a database, all the rules that define, what are all the tables and what are the relationships between the tables, and all of, being able to enter data into tables and things of that nature. All right, so that's, obviously the first part. But once we've established all that, once we have a working database, what we want to do is we want to be able to run a query against it and be able to get data out of it, basically ask questions of the database. All right, so what I'm working with right here, so this is the Sam's Club database. So this is what we're going to be using for our project. So I just want to, it's another opportunity here to kind of give you a demonstration of what kind of the database and how it works. If you take a look over here, here's a list of all of the tables that are in this database. So you see we've got a members table, the item scan, store visits, item description, a visit day, a duration, basically how long a member has been a member of Sam's Club. All right, so that's all these different tables. These two right here, the store visits and the item scan, is really the kind of lies at the heart of this database. All right, so from a business process perspective, if you go to Sam's Club, you're a member, you have a card, you have an identifier, your membership number, which when you come to the store, you use the membership card to enable you to actually purchase stuff. All right, so the idea is you go to the store, you fill up a cart with a bunch of stuff, you go to the checkout counter, you give your card to the checkout clerk, they submit your number, which actually starts this checkout process. They scan all of your items, and then you render payment, and then you are done. The way this works from the table perspective, the store visit represents all of the attributes associated with just that visit. All right. So if I look at the table itself, all right, what I've got here, so this is the actual table. It's 39,000 rows, 39,435 rows in this table. You see the structure, the columns. So we have a visit number, the register number you checked out, the membership number, membership type, tender amount, sales tax, visit amount, transaction date. Let's see what that is. Refund code, a couple other fields here. All right. So what we want to do is so what I have right here, so this is the whole table. So if I double click on the table, it gives me basically a display of everything that's in the table. What I want to do is I want to do a query. All right, so the way query works is, the way you get the query is you go under the create tab, like right here, okay? And then you'll see a queries, on the ribbon you see queries. A query wizard enables you to actually develop queries, enter some parameters. It'll walk you through a query creation. But for our purposes here, what we're going to do is we're going to be working with the query designer. All right, so I've actually just created a new query. When you fire it up, what it'll do is it'll give you a list of all the tables. If you double click on the table, it'll then put that table into the display here. All right. So the way this works, the way this will operate is the table. So this is your kind of your relationship area where you put all your tables and your connections and how you connect everything together. Our focus right now is just working with single table queries. All right, so we'll focus more on doing joins and all that fun stuff later. But for right now, we're just going to be working with a single table. In this case, we're working with the item, that's the item description. Let's get rid of this. And let's do a different table. Let's go with, I just right click that, show table. I'm going to go with the store visits table. Okay. All right, so this gives us, what we did is now we're going to query this table. So we've dropped the table into this kind of upper array here. And this lower level, this grid down here, is really where the work gets done about what we're going to query, for that table, and what we're going to do, how we're going to qualify it. All right. Simplest query we can do. If I take the first field, scroll to the bottom, click the last field, drag it onto the grid. or you'll see this says field number and table and show. All right. If I click run, what it did is basically I did a query of that table totally unqualified. So I said, give me all fields from all rows. So as you can see, 39,435. So they're unqualified. So by default, if you just simply take a table, run a query against it, you'll get basically the contents of the table, which is fine, which is good. But working with 39,000 rows might not be what we're actually looking for. Also, we might not need to see every column. All right, so let's go over here. Let's change this query. So the way you change the query, the way Access works is you have this view on the far left hand of the ribbon on the top here. We have something called view. And you can actually do a couple different views of a query. So the query, one view is what we call the datasheet view, which is really what's the result of that query. If I execute the query against that table, give me back the results. That's your datasheet view. The design view is where we do most of our, well, we're going to be doing most of our work here, which is, consists of two parts. The top part where we put the tables that we'll be doing the querying against. And then this bottom grid, which is, specifically calls out what we want to have that table, what we want to pull from that table. All right. You also have the SQL view. So the SQL view is actually the SQL commands that this view here, the design view, which is also known as query by example, QBE. These are the exact same thing. All right. So in effect, what will happen is the design view gives you the ability to translate the design view into the SQL commands, which are then executed, which then gives you the results in the datasheet view. All right. So that's the relationship. If you click run, it executes the table. All right, so let's go to our design view. So we want to do something less than, we don't want to see all the fields. We don't want to see every record. So let's take our transaction date, for example. All right. So let's look at the view again, datasheet view. So I have 1/2/2000. Say, for example, we want to see all the transactions that occurred on the 5th of January. All right. Design view. So I'm going to say is transaction date. I'm going to say equals 1/5/2000. Okay. I'm going to run that. And what you'll see is I have 1,159 rows in this result set. All right, don't forget, when you execute a query, what you get back is what we call the result set. All right, so the result set we pull back is all of the columns for everything, but the date is only 1/5. If I scroll all the way down, everything is 1/5. Okay. So which gives us, which is actually pretty, a little more useful. All right. Now, say for example, we want to go back and say, okay, at 1/5, how many people went through register 1? We'll go to our design view again. So what I'm going to say here is I'm going to say the register, my register number, I'm going to make that equal to 1. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for everything that occurs, all the transactions that are in this table, all the records that are in this, that have that match a date of 1/5, and that's the key word, and went to register number 1. Let's execute this. Okay, only 17. Okay, so there's only 17 transactions that went through register 1 on that day. All right, so there's a so the one concept we want to think about is on the design view this concept of an and. So on the criteria, and this is one of the tricky parts of Access, and one of the things you want to focus on. You can put multiple selection criteria. You can select different types of criteria across, all of these different fields, and it'll go against the table and will match everything up. Remember, it's all about creating a set that matches that criteria. All right. So in a case right here is I want to see everything in table 1. So the way you would read this would be, give me all of the fields from this table where register number is 1 and the transaction date is 5. Okay. So you read this as and. Everything on this line is an and. And. And you can have all sorts of different criteria. So you can say something is equal to 1. You can say something is greater than 1. If I run that, it's anything but 1. All registers but 1 on the 5th. Once again, it's still on the 5th. All right. Or I can do everything or I can say everything less than 1, which should be, there's no row 0, so this will return an empty set. This is empty. So it didn't match anything. All right. Let's go back to our design view again. Will equal 1. So that's what we call an and. All right. On the show, what will happen is if you do, the only thing the show controls, if you click show, it'll just basically show in the result set. All right. So for example, if you unclick it, it will not show. If I take this off right here, it'll start, the result set will start with the register number. See, register number. All right. Or even though I select it, I can take that off. So long as I just, all that does is that just toggles whether or not you would see it or not. It'll still evaluate it. All right. So it's still, I've still got 17 back, but you note there's no date here this time. Okay. So that's a demonstration of some of the capability. You don't have to have all of the fields, but as a matter of fact, you can actually say, for example, if you only wanted to see a couple of the fields, like 2 or 3, say we don't want the total scan count, I can highlight it, delete it. That's transaction time. So I'll just leave that for right now. So I've lopped a couple of these off. All right. So when I execute, it just simply shows the transaction time. And the other fields are gone or taken off. Click it, and magically the date comes back. Okay? Gives you an idea. So you can use plus, minus, or greater than, equal to. Something else to remember. If you say something is greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, that's not the same thing as greater than and less than. All right, so say, for example, you wanted something greater than 1. That would be made up of the set 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so forth. If I said it's equal to or greater than 1, it would be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and everything else. All right, so a little thing is actually one of the things you can find sometimes when you do a query. You think you got data missing, and you go back and you realize you, instead of having a greater than or equal to, you have a equal to, or excuse me, just a greater than. Okay. So the other thing I want to show here one last piece of this. All right, on this table, we've got an OR. Well, that's kind of an interesting number. So right now, the way you would read this, it would select everything so long as it matches everything on the ands. Right? But I also can add additional ones. As a matter of fact, you can do as many. I think it's like you can do a couple other qualifiers. What I can do is I can say, give me everything from register 1 on the 15th, or give me everything from register 2 on the 18th. Okay. So if I execute this, what you'll find is it will be everything that has a 2 and an 18 or a 1 and a 5. Okay. So as you look, the way you would read this, everything has to match. You can't cross the streams. All right. So basically, everything has to match perfectly, either on one line, or it has to match everything perfectly on the next line, or the next line. So there's nothing that spans from this one to this line to this line. It has to be either a 1 and a 1 5, or a 2 and a 1 18. That's an OR condition. So that's what we call the OR condition. And you can put multiple OR conditions. So what will happen is this can actually get pretty sophisticated. Just think about that, because you can take all combinations of ands and ors of different types. So you can, pretty flexible capability to be able to do stuff. One more thing to show. So field here, it says sort. One of the characteristics of SQL, relational databases, order is irrelevant. All right. So what that means is I can store data in any. There's no requirement to store data in a particular order. However, in real life, when we're working with data, a lot of times order is important. Like you want to see the largest numbers first, or the lowest numbers first, depending upon the circumstances, as opposed to trying to randomly scatter, especially if you have large amounts of data. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort the visit amount. So we'll take the visit amount, total visit amount. Now I'm going to sort this descending. So what descending means is I start with the highest and I go to the lowest. Ascending means I go from the lowest, go to the highest. So on either on the 15th, the 5, or even the 5th or the 18th, register 1, register 2, I'm going to get the result set, and I'm going to sort them descending. So the biggest numbers will come first. I run this. And what we will see is everything is sorted by our total visit amount. So the largest ones, 555.05, occurred on the 18th. All right. Second one also on the 18th. First one of a larger one on the 5th. It was for 214. So this is so what it did is it took the result set of looking for those 2 days, for those 2 registers. It took those results back and then sorted them by that column. All right, so we can go back and see what's the largest or what's the smallest, depending upon the circumstances, which becomes pretty useful in in an analytical kind of situation where you're always looking for kind of identify kind of things that summarization and order of magnitude is one of the criteria you're always looking for. Okay, so that is really it. So it gives you, as I said, this will give you kind of a running start on being able to run queries and be able to process queries inside of Access. All right.